Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Outsiders Fantasy Podcast. Um, we are your host, Johnny Thursday Night tonight, and then we, as always, our leading man, Drew Schefter. So just wanted to go over, preview, and kind of give my numbers prediction on Thursday Night Football tonight. I know we're all kind of scrambling and worrying because of the Titans and all the other players around the league that are starting to test positive for COVID, especially your Derrick Henry owners, Corey Davis, A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill, Johnny Smith, a Titans defense even. I know some of y'all are just waiting to collect back on those guys. I don't know. The league is saying that they prefer not to cancel the game, but potentially move it to Tuesday if we can get because I'm a Titans fan. But if potentially we can get 2 negative tests in the next couple of days for each of the 2 days or something like that, then potentially the Bills game won't be either postponed or forfeited or whatever they're talking about. It might just get moved to Tuesday night. So, but for right now, we'll break down the Bucs and Bears, and there might be a couple of people, if it's available on your waivers, you could go ahead and maybe pick up off the waiver wire just in case. They give you a little cushion in case the Titans don't play or the Bills don't play for that matter. Granted, there's not too many options out there, but there are a few kind of under the radar people that I wouldn't necessarily pass up. We'll get to it, and we'll get started with the injury report, and that'll lead into the outcome of why I got to the predictions that I got to. So for the Buccaneers, we got Leonard Fournette. He's going to be doubtful with an ankle injury. Usually when they're doubtful the day of the game, and knowing Leonard Fournette's history, he is kind of injury prone. Doubtful probably means it's really doubtful that he'll play, which is fine. He's not, from the coaching staff standards of Tampa Bay, Leonard Fournette isn't considered the number one back anyway. So if you have Ronald Jones and Derrick Henry on your team for some reason or for whatever reason, I mean, it's a good combo to have as a smart draft pick to get up Ronald Jones probably in one of the later rounds. I would probably, if you have that kind of situation or you're able to get Ronald Jones and you have Derrick Henry, leave your flex open. Put Ronald Jones in one of your running back spots because you know he's going to play. And that way you have until Sunday and you'll have your flex open. You'll have Derrick Henry maybe able to play, but you'll also, most importantly, be starting Ronald Jones and getting those points. So LaShawn McCoy is also out with the ankle injury. Again, another Buccaneers running back, which even reinforces again even more what I'm saying about Ronald Jones.
Another guy. Sorry to cut you off, but another guy that he got some touches last week and scored a touchdown. A guy from Vanderbilt right here in Nashville, Keyshawn Vaughn. He stepped in and I think he had about 11 points last week. So, like you said, Ronald Jones is probably the better pick. But if he's not available, Keyshawn Vaughn might be one.
Yeah, if you're in a deep league or like our league specifically, we're running back hungry for sure. So if you need a deep running back pick, that's another viable option in that situation. Again, if you're desperate and you own Derrick Henry, probably you are desperate. So for the Bucs, O.J. Howard's going to be out with an Achilles. Chris Godwin. It said doubtful. I saw doubtful. I saw out. Probably going to be out with a hamstring injury. He's week to week, and it's still been bothering him. They're not really hurting for wide receivers. Tom Brady hit 9 different players in the second half to score 5 touchdowns last week. So, I mean, he can make it work. Ronald Jones is also a viable PPR option. That's another reason why I recommend playing him if you have him. So, I mean, he has no problem, as we've seen with New England, he has no problem taking it down to running backs and tight ends and things like that. Gronk is still playing. So, I mean, I wouldn't worry about if you're a Tom Brady owner, I wouldn't worry about sitting him or anything like that with Chris Godwin and O.J. Howard being out. He's still got plenty of viable options. Mike Evans, he is listed as questionable. I think he's going to go ahead and play. He's usually always he's like Julio Jones. He's usually always questionable, but then sooner rather than or more rather than not, he's going to play and suit up, and that he's got a great rapport with Tom. So notable. Sorry, go ahead.
Just to back that up on two of those guys, Godwin, yes, he is out. Just seeing that report, and Mike Evans will be active tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So that's definitely a good thing. Obviously, start your stud. Start Mike Evans. Start Tom Brady. But some notable defensive injury or outs for the Bears, which makes this matchup. If you have any of the players on the Bucs teams that are healthy, I mean, Tom Brady spreading it out to 9 receivers last week shows that can be a fruitful receiving core all the way down to the running back spot in Ronald Jones. What makes it even more tasty to me personally, so they got Deion Bush out, their starting safety, very good safety. Akeem Hicks, I'm sorry. He's probably playing, but he's really banged up. He's got finger issues, wrist issues, and I think a leg or an elbow issue. So even if he plays, he's not at 100%. And Roquan Smith, I believe, is out due to personal issues. I don't know what's going on there, but he's a really good presence as well at linebacker. And Akeem Hicks is on their defensive line, for those of you who don't know. Those are really good key players and cornerstone pieces to the Bears defense. Now, granted, they still do have some pretty good players in their secondary. They still got Khalil Mack coming off the edge. So don't get it twisted. They still have a formidable defense, but they're definitely not at full capacity. And if Tom Brady knows how to do anything, that's how to pick apart defenses and pick on new players that aren't used to that kind of spotlight, especially primetime games like Thursday Night Football. Which leads me into Tom Brady. Just so all you guys know, he is 5-0 against the Bears. So he is no stranger to picking apart that Bears defense and winning. I mean, he's got very good numbers against every team in the NFL. So, and as we've seen that, and Bruce Arians and a couple of other analysts breakdown of last week's game where they came back in the second half. A lot of people like Colin Cowherd and things like that, they've said it's basically the same roster. Just the only thing that's changed is Brady, and the reason why they've been able to put it together versus when Jameis was there, they weren't quite able to, is because they have belief. So they didn't really change in talent. They just changed in the culture of the locker room and what Brady brings. So knowing that Brady is undefeated against the Bears, I mean, that's another step up in the confidence factor for those people, for all those players. Also, Mike Evans with Tom Brady has scored a touchdown in every single game this week, and he's actually got 5 on the year because he scored 2 in a game or 2 ago. So they have obviously found their rapport. With Chris Godwin out and with O.J. Howard out and them having to rely on one running back, Ronald Jones is going to get tired. Granted, they'll have a spell, but he's not going to do much. So Ronald Jones, they're going to want to give him breaks. So I see Tom Brady throwing a lot. And with that rapport with Mike Evans, I've seen him and Scotty Miller getting a lot of targets thrown their way. And also, if you have Gronk, I would highly recommend him in this game just because he does like to spread the ball around, and Gronk's his man. We all know how much he likes Gronk. So, and on to the Bears. Like I said, they're missing some key defensive people. So I don't know if they're not worth dropping, but if you have like a player that you don't really care about on your bench, and you're able to kind of play the matchups, if there's a better team out there for you, with a better matchup, maybe just try streaming a defense this week if you can afford to drop a player, if you have a space or something like that. I know there's a couple of people this past week that went down with injuries. So if you have an injured reserve spot, that'll open up a place for you on your bench to pick up another defense. So I necessarily wouldn't play their defense. But what I do like is on the offensive side of the ball, Nick Foles and Allen Robinson and David Montgomery. Those are the three that I do like. Granted, Tampa Bay's defense is very formidable for sure. They've been doing pretty solid. Again, with that belief factor, they play with a fire and intensity. Sometimes it takes a little while to wake up, but they're still pretty formidable. But Allen Robinson is somebody that I really, really like with Nick Foles. Just wanted to drop a little bit of knowledge on that combination, just to put it in perspective for you on why I like Allen Robinson so much right now. He is 11th in the NFL in catches, 9th in yards, but he only has 2 touchdowns. This has trended upward significantly since Nick Foles. And why I say that is in 11 quarters playing with Mitchell Trubisky, he's had 14 receptions, 176 yards, and no touchdowns. Not too bad when you look at it just strictly from a number standpoint. But from a quarter standpoint, Nick Foles has been playing with A-Rob for 5 quarters, so 6 less quarters. And Allen Robinson with Nick Foles in those 5 quarters has 11 receptions, 155 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So not only is Allen Robinson getting the love and the targets in a way quicker fashion with Nick Foles, but he's also getting his touchdowns, which is the reason why you drafted this guy. So I like him every week now as long as he's playing with Nick Foles. Granted, Nick's not always going to have a good game himself, but I think Allen Robinson is going to get his, and he's going to get fed enough.
Yeah, I agree with you. We saw that chemistry like immediately when Foles entered the game against Atlanta. It was just like they turned the switch on or something. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, Nick Foles and you and I talked about this off air last week. It always seems like when you put Nick Foles in the starting position, like when you bring him to Jacksonville or something like that, and you make him the man, or even with the Eagles, with the exception of that one monster season that he had with them, he kind of shrivels when you put all that weight on his shoulders. But if he's the backup quarterback and he's coming in, it just seems like he plays on a higher level for some reason because he doesn't feel so much pressure. I don't know. That's just all assumption. But it does look like that. And but anyway, Mitchell Trubisky's still out, so he's going to be playing, and he seems very comfortable in that offense. Adam Gase is really known for being a good quarterback coach. As long as the quarterback's competent. I don't know why they got Mitchell Trubisky in the first place, but that's neither here nor there.
That was a different show,
right? So that's how I feel about the passing game for the Bears. As far as the running game, David Montgomery, I would play him regardless because he is one of those people that you would have gone out and drafted. I got him 20th ranked this week. He's not a bad running back. He's great in all facets of the game. He can definitely catch you a couple passes a week for sure. And he's a very reliable back to have, maybe in a flex position. Definitely a running back too if you got a deep league. Just like I said, Tampa Bay's defense is pretty solid. Some of their numbers, as far as points wise, don't really tell the whole tale of the tape, but they are a feisty defense. So, plus with the pressure that Tampa is going to be putting on them to make sure Ronald Jones is healthy for the fourth quarter so he can run and appreciate it. Just so they can thanks, Mom. Just so they can stay fresh towards the end of the game because I expect that they're going to have the lead going late into the game. So they're going to want to keep their bell cow for the night as healthy and as not tired, if that's the word, as possible. fresh. There's the word I was looking for. As fresh as possible going into the fourth quarter, so they can really feed him at the end to probably seal the game and keep the hands out of Nick Foles and company.
Freshly squeezed.
Yeah, freshly squeezed. So again, like I said, I would out of the two quarterbacks, if you just so happen to have both of them on your team, Brady and Foles, I would expect Brady to have the better game overall in the quarterback department. They have more enticing reasons to throw with the safety being out, with one of the linebackers being out, and one of the defensive linemen being out. So there goes part of your pass rush, part of your run stop as well, which makes you susceptible to play action when you can't stop the run. One of your starting, I think he's the captain, maybe not captain because Khalil Mack might be the captain. But anyway, one of your Pro Bowl caliber, I believe is an inside linebacker. He's going to be out, which covers the second level usually, so the tight end, running backs, things like that. And then one of your safeties out, so you have a less knowledgeable safety covering over the top for Scotty or for Mike Evans or something like that when they get into the red zone, even Gronk or whoever Brady's throwing to in the end zone. He's not as experienced, so I expect Brady to have a better game.
Yeah, I saw that the Bears, they promoted Devontae Bond from the practice squad to the active roster. So good luck to him against Brady.
Yeah, we know Tom Brady loves picking on young guys, so he's a very smart guy. So that's all the notes I have so far in the game. So just to give you my predictions real quick. So for standard and PPR for the quarterbacks, because usually it's similar, unless some reason you are like PPR as far as per rushing attempt or something like that. That might vary a little bit just in case like Tom Brady does a sneak or something like that, but I don't expect a lot of you to do something like that. But so for PPR and standard, I have Tom Brady at 17 and Nick Foles at 17. That's kind of a conservative number for Brady, and that's kind of, in my opinion, about the ceiling. Thank you. I think that's kind of the ceiling for Foles. I wouldn't be surprised if Brady got maybe like 20, something like that, about 19, 20, like somewhere around in there.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be a good game if Foles got 16 for sure. And on to the wide receivers of the group. So Allen Robinson, I got him at about 15 points in PPR. I would say about 12-ish in standard. Just minus a couple of catches. Well, probably like about, I would say, about 11 points in a standard league. Mike Evans, I also got him. I got him at 15. He's not as high of a volume catcher as Allen Robinson. He's more of a big play or red zone target. Granted, there are games where he can be a workhorse and pull the team. But he's more of a bigger play type guy, chunk play, if you will, or a red zone touchdown type of receiver, however they decide to use him. So I got him at 15 in PPR. The differential for the standard, I have him at 12. So about 3 catches left. And then Scotty Miller, I have him at 11. And since he's more of a high volume guy, probably about a 7 for standard. So 11 PPR, 7 in standard. And if you're struggling, if you're missing out on Juju, the Bills receivers that you might have, Stephon Diggs, John Brown, or any Titans receivers like Corey Davis or A.J. Brown, something like that. Somebody that I would look at, Anthony Miller. He hasn't been wowing me or anything this year, but he is a solid receiver and he's really quick. So he could definitely be, if you're in a deeper league and you need a flex option or something like that, if you have a receiver from your bench, you can promote into one of your wide receiver spots and have a bench spot or a flex spot open. And it's a deeper league, like I said, Anthony Miller. Also, somebody I haven't really followed as much, but somebody that has been trending a little bit upward since Foles has been in is Darnell Mooney. He's also someone that you can look at. So for both of them, I have them about 7.5, probably about 7.5, 8 points in PPR, and then about 5 in standard. So like I said, granted, it's got to be a deep league, and you got to really be desperate for a flex or something. So, but those are some viable options. But it's only Thursday night, so I wouldn't be scrambling to like find your flexes. Just make sure your main spots, your skill positions are covered up, and then there's a lot better talent, I would think, playing on Sunday than there would be in this game to kind of fill that flex position. Unless for some reason Ronald Jones just so happens to be out there, then get him by all means. Speaking of Ronald Jones, on to the running backs. I have him at 16 points in PPR, and then I got him at about 13 in standard, minus about 2 or 3 catches. David Montgomery, I have him at 14, and then I have him at 12 for standard. So 14 PPR and 12 for standard. And then, as Drew said, Keyshawn Vaughn, I have him at 8 points. Yeah. 8 points in PPR, and then about 6 points in standard. So, again, another viable pickup if you're really desperate for somebody. And then to the tight ends, Gronk, Grady's favorite son, or what he calls himself at least. I got him at 10 points in PPR. I don't think he's going to make a huge splash. I mean, he's basically just waiting it out till the playoffs before they really hook that connection up, like they always have when it's, even in New England. They usually save Gronk until the very end. So
because he's something's on the line, they definitely turn it on for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely accident prone in his older age and stuff. So, but when they need to, they can definitely find each other for sure. So tonight, I don't have him making a whole lot of noise, but since O.J. Howard is going to be out, it's him and Cameron Brate splitting it. So because of that, I think Brady has a better rapport with Gronk than he does with Brady, even though Brady is a viable tight end. I got him, like I said, around 10, probably even 11 in PPR, and then about 6 in standard. Jimmy Graham, got him at 8 in PPR, and then 5 in standard. And then Cameron Brate, I have 6 in PPR and then 4 in standard. If you're in like a double tight end league or a double flex and you're super desperate for somebody, wouldn't necessarily. I would probably put in Jimmy Graham. Or that's another viable option because you never know. He's always a good red zone threat, so they can get down in the red zone, and Jimmy Graham could have a pretty good run. And then I'll just give you, just in case you just so happen to have one of these defenses. You probably have the Bears defense because they're a pretty good squad this year. But I actually have Tampa ranked a little bit higher than them. They're ranked around 10th, and then Chicago's about 15th. I'm not going to project necessarily points. Some people, there's all types of defensive scoring. Some people start off with 10, 0 points, and then they add points per sacks, interceptions. Some get deflections, QB hits. Some go by yardage allowed. And then they also have negative points once you overstep those boundaries. So that's just a minefield that I prefer not to walk in. But like I said, the Bears do have some key players out on defense that would really challenge Tom Brady more than not. So since they're out, I and you had an available spot to stream a defense, I think there might be a better option that you could probably find tonight. I just don't think, even though they're playing in Chicago, that since when has traveling to other places bothered Tom Brady? Like we said, he's 5-0. That includes in their house as well. So I would probably sit the Bears defense if at all possible this week. Buccaneers, if you're needing a streaming option, it's not necessarily a bad find just because their defense is pretty solid. And Chicago is kind of bare bones in general. I mean, they do have Allen Robinson, like I said, that's trending upward, and David Montgomery, but the Buccaneers are a pretty solid defense all around. So they're definitely a decent streaming option this week, in my opinion. So
yeah, their run game it's allowing less than three yards per carry. So
yeah,
it's when you make a team one dimensional, they're a lot easier to defend. So.
Exactly. And that brings up a good point. I mean, I really do expect this game eventually, maybe by the beginning of the fourth or mid-fourth quarter, to make the Bears be one-dimensional. And when that happens, and Jason Pierre-Paul, if he ends up playing, I know he's questionable, but if he ends up playing, plus with Levante David, he's really good at getting to the quarterback. I see them doing some really good things, and it's an NFL defense. If you can make anybody play one-dimensional, most of those defenses out there that don't make noise for most of the game, they'll definitely make noise when they know what you're doing. You're more predictable. So
yeah, and the Bears, they've struggled all year on the run game anyways. So
yeah,
it makes it even more easier, or even easier. So I'm sorry, even more easy. But you know what I'm saying? They
our own dictionary here.
Yeah. Yeah, they're. It's. I don't think it's going to be a close game at all, to be honest, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a betting person. I'm not much into like the over-unders or anything like that. But I definitely see Tampa Bay winning by at least maybe 10 points. So
yeah, the over-under is I think 45. I think
total. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. I mean, Nick Foles can sling it. He definitely has found his favorite target in Allen Robinson. And Robinson has definitely shown that he can perform. He just needed somebody all along that could trust in him and throw to him. So I don't think they're going to shut the Bears out or anything like that. They'll definitely find a way. They have a really good offensive-minded coach who's really good at, with quarterbacks that are worth anything.
Yeah, I think
Judge Adam Gase based off of Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, like you said, I think the Bears will score some points, but again, like you said, I think it'll be at least a 10-point win.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. So that's it today for the Thursday night football game. We will get back with you on Sunday for the Sunday breakdown. And those of y'all that follow our wrestling channel or wrestling show as well, we'll be with you again on Sunday evening as well for the recap on this week in wrestling. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, come with us if